My name is Ruth Bellamy, and my family found out what I had built when my aunt looked up to complain about the parking and saw my last name carved in stone over the door. It was a cold, bright Saturday in Cleveland, the kind that makes old buildings look honest. My Aunt Colleen was halfway through a sentence about how far we had all had to drive to this part of town, this neighborhood, she said, with the little downward turn she saves for places and people she has decided are beneath her. When her eyes went up the front of the restored stone building we were standing in front of, up past the new windows and the old arch, and stopped on the word cut into the keystone at the top. Bellamy. She read it twice. I watched her read it twice. Then she looked at me, and for the first time in 10 years, my Aunt Colleen did not know what to say to me. That is where I want to start, because it is the moment they had spent a decade making sure would never come. For 10 years, my family had a story about me, and the story was that I was the one who did not make it. So let me tell you what I was actually building while they were busy feeling sorry for me, and why my name ended up in stone over a door I fought to keep it off of. 10 years back, I was the disappointment before I ever did anything to earn it. My cousin Sloane and I are the same age, and we were the two the family watched. Sloane went straight into finance, into a firm called Ardent Capital, and she climbed it the way some people pray, with total devotion. And by our early 30s, she was a managing director with a corner office and a title that took 3 breaths to say. I went a different way. I went into the part of the city everyone else had written off, and I started trying to build something there, and my family decided within about a year that I had thrown my life away. They were not cruel about it, which is somehow worse. They were kind about it. Poor Ruth, my Aunt Colleen would say at brunches, still finding her path. They thought I did, as they put it, some little community job. Something with a nonprofit, they would tell their friends, a bit vague, a bit apologetic, the way you mention a relative's condition. They pictured me handing out sandwiches and filling out grant forms for a salary that embarrassed them. When people asked what I did, my own mother, Joan, would say, Ruth helps people, and let the sentence trail off like an apology, and I let her. And I need you to remember that I let her, because this is not only a story about what they got wrong. It is also a story about what I hid. Here is what I actually did. I found a dead building in a dead block, an old stone bank from the last century, boarded up, pigeons in the rafters, and I decided it was going to come back to life and take the neighborhood with it. I had no money to speak of. What I had was 10 years of stubbornness, and one old man named Emmett. Emmett was a stonemason, past 70 when I met him, hands like tree roots, and he was the one who taught me the thing that turned out to be the key to everything, the idea I built my whole life around without telling a soul. We were standing under that ruined arch over the front door, the one thing in the building that had not fallen, and I asked him why it was still up when everything around it had come down. He put his hand flat on the wedge-shaped stone at the very top, and he said, "This one. This is the keystone." And here is the strange thing about it, Ruth. It carries no load anyone can see. Every other stone is obviously holding weight. This one just sits at the top looking useless. But it is the last stone you set, and it is the one that locks all the others so the arch can carry anything at all. Take it out and the whole thing comes down in a heap. He tapped it. Nobody looks at the keystone, he said. Nobody thanks it. It gets no credit. It just holds everything together. You want to build something that lasts, he said. You learn to be the keystone. Be the keystone. I have run my whole life on those 3 words, and I never once explained them to my family, because you cannot explain a keystone. That is the entire point of a keystone. So I became one on purpose in the dark. It took 10 years. I raised money one hard dollar at a time. I learned building codes and grant cycles and how to sit across from a foundation officer and not blink. I hired people the rest of the city would not hire, and I watched them become the best staff I have ever known. The old stone bank became a center, a real one, with a health clinic on the ground floor and a job training program upstairs, and a kitchen that fed the block and a room where kids could go after school so their parents could work without fear. We restored the arch stone by stone. Emmett set the last one himself, the year before he died, and he would not let me help. While that was happening, I sat through brunch after brunch of being pitied. My cousin Sloane, meaning to be kind, once offered me an entry-level job in her firm's operations department. A foot in the door, she said, and I said thank you, I will keep it in mind. And I went back to a neighborhood that was coming back from the dead because of a woman they thought could not find her path. My Aunt Colleen worried out loud, at every gathering, that I still lived in a small apartment. I did live in a small apartment. That part was true, and here is where I have to be honest in a way these stories usually are not. I was not secretly rich. I want to say that plainly, because I have heard the version where the quiet one turns out to have been hiding a fortune the whole time, wearing expensive clothes nobody noticed, living in a secret penthouse, laughing behind her hand at the family who pitied her poverty. That was not me. My clothes were cheap because they were cheap. My apartment was small because I put every dollar I did not spend on rent into that building. There was no disguise, no secret watch, no hidden money. My wealth was not hidden in a shell company. My wealth was a building full of people who were alive and working and warm because it existed. That is the truth, and it is a better truth, and I am tired of the other one. But I did hide something, and it was not luxury. I hid the work itself. I never invited them. Not once in 10 years did I say, come see what I am doing, come stand in the room, come meet the people. I told myself I was too busy. The real reason is uglier and simpler. Being underestimated was comfortable. If they thought I was small, they never came close enough to judge the thing I actually loved, and if they never came close, they could never stand in my center and find a way to make it small too. I kept them out to keep it safe. That is on me. The pity was theirs. The distance was mine. The day it all came apart, it came apart by accident. Sloane's firm, Ardent Capital, had decided it needed a community partnership, the kind that looks good in a glossy report, and someone at City Hall told them the most respected community institution on the East Side was a place called the Bellamy Center. So Sloane came to tour it and to talk about a sponsorship, and she brought her mother, my Aunt Colleen, and my mother, Joan, came along because the whole family was making an afternoon of it, and none of them, not one, connected the name over the door with me until they were standing under the arch and Colleen looked up. I came out the front to meet the group from Ardent Capital because I always meet the people who might fund us myself, and I stopped on the top step, and there was my family on the sidewalk looking up at Emmett's keystone with my name in it. Ruth, Sloane said. Her voice did a thing I had never heard it do. What are you doing here? I work here, I said. Then I made myself say the rest because hiding was the old way and I was done with it. I founded it. 10 years ago, welcome to the center. The sidewalk went quiet the way that Arch went quiet the day the last stone dropped in. I took them through it, all of them, the firm's people and my family in one strange group. I showed them the clinic with the line of patients, the training floor where a man named Micah, my cousin's own age, a kid this family had also quietly given up on years ago and who I had hired when no one else would, was teaching a class. I showed them the kitchen and the after-school room. I did not gloat. I want that on the record because there is a version of me that had waited 10 years to gloat, and I found, standing there, that I did not want to. Emmett did not build a keystone so I could use it to hit people. The firm made their offer in the conference room, a large check, a naming opportunity, their logo on our materials, a photograph of their leadership under our arch. And here is where I set the first hard line. I said the center would take a partnership only if the money served the neighborhood on the neighborhood's terms, that our name would stay our name, that we do not sell the top of our arch to anyone, and that I would not stand for a photograph that turned 10 years of other people's dignity into an afternoon of good press for a finance firm. I said it kindly. I meant it like stone. Sloane, to her credit, was the one who nodded first. Then my family, and this is the part that matters more than any of it. My Aunt Colleen recovered fast, the way she always does, and I watched her start to build the new story right there in the room, the one where she had always known, always believed, where poor struggling Ruth became our Ruth, the one we were proud of all along. She reached for my hands and started to say it. We always knew you were doing something wonderful, and I stopped her. Gently, but all the way. No, I said. You did not know, Aunt Colleen. You did not know because I never let you in, and that part is mine to own. But you also never once asked. For 10 years you had a niece building this, and you decided she was a disappointment because she was not building it in a tower with a title you could brag about. I am not going to stand here and let you turn that into a story where you were proud the whole time, because it is not true, and I have spent 10 years learning that a thing only holds if it is built out of what is actually true. She did not have an answer. For once, nobody rushed to fill the quiet. I did not cut them off. I want to be clear about that because I know the ending people expect, the one where I throw them out into the cold and everyone cheers. I do not build that way. Cutting Colleen down would not have made my arch any stronger. It would have just made me another person swinging at family across a nice room. But I did not hand everything back either. I did not let a 2-hour tour erase 10 years. I told them the door was open, the real one, that any of them could come and volunteer and stand in the room and meet the people. And that I would know they had actually changed not by what they said this afternoon, but by whether any of them ever came back on an ordinary Tuesday when there was no reveal to witness and no name in stone to gasp at. One of them did, not Colleen or not yet. Sloane came back. She came back on a Tuesday in old clothes, and she taught a budgeting class on the training floor, and she was quietly good at it, and she has kept coming, and she does not post about it. It was not a grand reconciliation. It was a woman showing up on an ordinary day with no audience. In my experience, that is the only kind of change that holds, not the speech, the Tuesday. The warmth I had, I gave where it was earned. To my mother, Joan, who cried in the after-school room and told me she had defended me for 10 years without ever understanding what she was defending, and who I forgave completely, because she had at least never once stopped saying Ruth helps people, even when she did not know how much. And to young Micah, who is not a disappointment and never was, who runs 2 programs now and whose name I am going to put on something someday when he is not looking, the way the board did to me. Because that is how the arch keeps standing. You lock in the next stone. They wanted at the end to know why my name was on the building at all, if I hate being looked at so much. The truth is I fought it. When the board voted to name the place, I said no, put the neighborhood's name on it, put anybody's name but mine. And an old woman on that board, who had watched me for 10 years, said the thing that ended the argument. She said, Ruth, the keystone does not get to decide it is invisible. It carries no load anyone can see, and it gets no credit it asks for. But when the building is going to stand for 100 years, somebody carves the name of the stone that locked it, so the people who come later know it was held on purpose. So they let me be invisible for 10 years, and then they carved my name in the one stone that never seemed to be doing anything, and I have made my peace with that. My family spent a decade staring at the showy stones, the title, the corner office, the things that obviously look like they are holding weight. They never once looked at the keystone, the plain wedge at the top that seems to do nothing and is quietly the only reason anything holds at all. I chose to be that. I chose it on purpose in the dark for 10 years, and I would choose it again. So if there is someone in your family you have decided is the one who did not make it, the quiet one, the one whose work you cannot quite see, I am going to ask you to do one thing before you carve that story any deeper. Go look up. Go stand in their actual building on an ordinary day when there is nothing to witness. You may find that the person you have been pitying is the keystone, and that the only reason your whole family has had somewhere to stand all these years is that she has been up there the entire time, holding and asking no one to notice.